Here. Pohl.
Here.
Bowden.
Here.
Andrews.
Here. Thank you. And proof of giving public meeting notice, Aaron?
Yep. Notices were posted at both schools, sent to the village of Dickeyville and Cuba City City Hall, as well as sent to members of our media on Monday, November 14th, 2022.
Okay. Consideration of the consent agenda. Are there any items A through C that you would like pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, would someone move, please?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Collins.
Yes.
White. Yes. Hinderman. Yes. Pohl.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Administrative reports. We don't have anything for special ed then because Deb's gone.
No, we were going to do one together with the data trends, and there was no special ed data that we felt comfortable putting in there.
All right.
Did you have any financial data, or should we hop right into this?
I have a report. Do you want me to give that?
Yep, why don't you give that, and then I'll come up here. If you don't mind, the principals will stay there. I'll go up there and move the slide for them, but Heather, go ahead.
So I've submitted our tax levy information to DPI and mailed all of the forms to the clerks. Another round of idea and title claims have been submitted. I've certified our annual Medicaid cost report. I've also submitted our first quarter Medicaid quarterly financial summary report. I just want to thank the communities of our school district for passing the referendum and doing what's best for our students, our district, and our community. And with the referendum passing, I've submitted the results to DPI, as well as we've started having some financial meetings regarding the referendum. With the November election now behind us, I've started working on the spring school board election, working on paperwork required, notices and publications in the paper. And then finally, I just want to thank the Cuba City School District staff. This week is American Education Week. And so I just want to say thank you to all of our employees for the wonderful work they do to make our district so great. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Heather. Any questions up there? All righty, Aaron, go ahead.
All right, here we go. So we're going to talk this month about city school district data trends. The school report cards, which actually came out today, moved up their embargo date. It was originally going to be after the board meeting, so we had this planned out. We're going to do the data first. We'll do the school board report for the school report cards at our December meeting. So this is the information that they use in the report card, but also things that people can see on WiseDash is what the district assessment site is called. So this deals with 2021 Forward, ACT Aspire, and ACT score. Now ACT Aspire is going away and replaced by, what do they call the 9th and 10th grade ACT? Pre-ACT. So
what is the difference, or is it one?
I don't know that there is. I think it's just a change in the name as far as I know at this point.
and likely a changing company. So they got a contract with a different assessment company.
And they had to use a different name.
All right, so Cuba City Elementary School, I'll run this. Troy, if you want to talk us through it.
Good. First is our ELA, our reading literacy. We're at 46.9% proficient level for ELA, which is 8.8% percentage points higher than the state average. So that's a healthy, a healthy increase from the state average. Our last 3 cycles indicate that our ELA proficiency level is trending up, which is a good sign as well. An area of growth, though, is that although our percentage is above state average, we still have 52.2% of our students not reading at a proficient level. And we have a school improvement goal to work on that this year. And also we are looking at, this is our year to purchase new ELA programs. We're doing a lot in kind of phonics and decoding and really kind of find some consistency that we think will help us lower that 52.2% for our ELA. Math, we're at 62.3% proficient, which is 18 percentage points higher than our state average. And again, our last 3 cycles have been double-digit percentage points above the state average for math. And talking to the teachers, they feel really confident that the curriculum and the programs that we have do a great job of spiraling our math concepts, and our consistency across the board has really helped raise our math scores. And then the last one is social studies and science. Again, we're above the state average in both social studies and science. And although above the state average in science, would like to look at why our percentage is lower than our 2020, 2021 percentage. But the important thing to remember here is this is fourth grade, so that's comparing two different grade levels and two different groups of students. So it's not comparing apples to apples, but I still think it's worth taking a look at to see if there's something else we could do to just kind of help that overall.
Question. I know you said we're higher than the state average and it sounded like, that we're doing well, but I guess given what I hear about either the effects of COVID and basically how are we doing, even though it's different age groups. I mean, at one point, I think our math, was a concern and an area of emphasis. So overall, of those subject areas that you mentioned, I mean, are we steady? Did we decline, increase?
Increased a little bit in our ELA. And in talking to the teachers, they did mention that COVID probably played a part. And I agree. Now we're kind of okay, we understand that, but now what can we do to kind of move past COVID and kind of really, I mean, I'm a big ELA reading person. So to see 52% not at proficient to me is a flag that we really want to work on. And I think all of our teachers agree with that. And we have great teachers. I think once we start really kind of making that our focus and kind of looking at the numbers and doing a little more data research, I think we'll see that number come down as well. But I think I think pretty steady, up a little bit, obviously, but definitely not down a great amount.
So that is the areas of biggest concern versus science and math.
For me, I think the numbers would show that as well, but I mean, a lot of studies show that the reading will allow your math to go up and your science and social studies to go up as well. So I think reading is a key, and a lot of other studies show that if you're not proficient by third grade, it's hard to ever become proficient in reading. So we really want to make sure with this new program and what we're doing that we really get the K3 going, and so when we get to 4 or 5, we can build on hopefully a proficient level.
The other thing to keep in mind is ELA is tested 3rd through 11th grade, whereas science and social studies are only tested at 4, 8, and 10. So it's harder, like Troy said, we were a little below last year, but when you only have 42 kids or 48 kids, 2 kids can make a big difference when we're looking at percentage of proficiency. So if they tested social studies and science every year, it would be easier to answer that and see, but because they only do it in 4, 8, and 10, it's a little harder to develop those trends.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this is middle school. For ELA, our 6th grade, I've got them broken out by 6th, 7th, and 8th. So 6th grade, we're at 65.6 proficiency, which is 27.6 points or percent higher than their state average. 7th grade, again, 40% proficiency, which is only 1.9% higher than the state average. And 8th grade, 34.4 proficiency, which is 1.5. So you can kind of see that in 7th and 8th grade, we're riding very, very close to what the state average is, where our 6th grade definitely is much stronger.
And that happens, you just have some grades that are significantly above or below grades on other sides. I mean, that is normal.
Kind of piggybacking on what Mr. Kraus said is we also, and we're 6-12 focusing on our reading as well. We're not in the position to get new materials. Actually, our middle school just got new materials
Last year.
So we're just working on focusing on reading, building reading stamina for kids, just getting them into books, no matter what it is, just so that everybody, because again, kind of like Mr. Kraus said, that if we can improve that reading, we're going to improve all of the other areas as well, because reading touches every subject that you study.
So do we have an example on maybe what the 7th graders and 8th graders were last year as 6th and 7th graders? I mean, there's such a big difference there. There's nothing in the testing that.
Chris, did you look at, I'm assuming when we got those, you
know what the
can look at
seventh
3 years
graders scored
trends.
in their proficiency last year.
I don't remember off the top of my head. I know when we look at it,
Yes, I can look that up, but I don't have it for this.
Yeah.
Can you give it to Aaron, maybe send it out in the Friday report
Yep.
or just send us an email?
yeah, I know where to get it in Wabash. I just don't remember what it is.
It just seems like such a big difference.
Big difference.
I mean, I understand classes are different, but that just seems like seventh and eighth are nearly the same. And
Yep, I can get that to you.
So then this is the middle school math. Sixth grade, obviously you can see 53.1% proficient, which is 13.7% higher than the state average. Seventh grade, 50%, which is 16% higher than the state average, and eighth grade, 27.9 proficient, which is actually 2.5% lower than the state average. So we had a little bit of a dip there for the eighth grade. Social studies and science, eighth grade is the only, so again, they said fourth, eighth, and 10th. So our social studies, 70.5% proficient, which is 12.9% higher than the state average, and science at 59% proficient, which is 10.7% higher than the state average. And again, like Mr. Olson was saying before, that is an individual class. So even if we were to look at, every other year, it would fluctuate. So then at the high school level, again, this is ELA and reading, 56.6% proficient, which is roughly 20% higher state average. 44.8% for 10th grade, which is 8.6 higher than the state average, and 11th grade at 36.6 proficient, 1.2% higher than the state average. So, again, this is kind of our focus is to build that reading. Just that was, and ELA and reading, these numbers are together, but reading is the area that specifically brought us down. Because when I look at ELA separate from reading, the ELA is a little bit higher. The reading is the spot. In fact, in all of our areas in high school, the reading we were by itself, we were below the state average. And so that's our area to consider. For the math, ninth grade, 72.7% proficient, which is 38% higher than the state average. 10th grade at 43.1% proficient, which is 9.6% higher than the state average. And 11th grade, 43.8% proficient, which is 15.6% higher than the state average. And I was actually talking with Mr. Derby. Math is the area that we are probably showing the most growth in over the past several years. He was explaining to me on the ACT that we were, I think 5 years ago and previous, didn't even crack the top 10. 2 years ago, we were in the top 10. And in the last 2 years, we've been in the top 5. And in fact, this year we were top 3.
Of what?
ACT composite.
ACT. And now this is more than just ACT. This is the Aspire, the Forward, and the ACT in these numbers. But I'm saying the ACT itself, we've made some significant improvement in math.
Yeah. So of the 31 schools in CISA, before 4 years ago, I think there was a 10-year trend there where we're in the middle third of CISA. So if you go top 10, 11 to 20, and then 20 below, we were always in that 11 to 20. In the last 4 years, I believe we had 2 years in the top 10 where we were maybe 8 or 7. And then the last 2 years we've been in the top 5.
of CISA.
Of CISA
Yes.
3 and that's for ACT some composite.
So where would we fall on that reading ELA in that 31 CISA?
Mr. Derby gets into the ACT, all that data. And so he sent that to us. He keeps a running tab of that.
Yeah.
We do not, I don't think we have that for ELA. We could find it, but
We could bring that out too.
I guess because to me it was, trying to fully assess that data where it looks like the reading, as you say, is concerned. I mean, if we're middle of the pack, maybe I'm not as concerned as if we're in the bottom of the pack, because then it would be, because it looks like it's more than just elementary. It's school-wide
Well,
more,
but.
and what are we doing?
and
How are we gonna
like,
address
well,
it?
we are, it's not that we're gonna just give up on it, but I mean, I went to the same training. The important thing is catching them K3. Like they said, once it gets past third grade, it's really difficult. Now, that doesn't mean that we're giving up. We're still going to be, attacking this as much as we can with some phonics type, lessons that are delivered. But it is much harder to make an impact once they've left that first through third grade area. So we're gonna do our best, but it's kind of fighting a losing battle once we get into high school.
So K-5, those curriculum teachers right now are really working on some things. They're going to some professional development on the science of reading. And really what they came back and shared with us was that roughly 40 years ago, many schools ditched phonics. Many of us probably had phonics in elementary school, where you learn phonemic awareness, you learn how to sound out words, and you look at every letter and try to figure out what those letters do and what they all sound like. They got rid of that in exchange for whole language. Well, let's not teach isolated parts of reading. Let's teach it all as a whole. And what we're finding is that some of the areas that our readers are struggling in is phonemic awareness and being able to sound some of those things out. So our teachers came back, shared that with us. Administratively, we're doing a professional development series really in our weekly admin meetings starting tomorrow on the science of reading, so that we're speaking the same language as our teachers, and our teachers were pushing this and shared it with us. So now we want to make sure that we're getting engaged in that as well. So that's kind of the process that we're going through with reading right now administratively, based on what the teacher's recommendation is.
Who decides what that number is as far as proficient?
The
I
state.
mean, it looks like almost every number that you've gone through with 35% of the state is proficient.
Yeah.
And that just seems like an incredibly low number to say that you only.
Yeah, they set the bar.
35% are competent at math or science or anything. I mean,
Yeah.
just-
So really, when we look at it on WiseDash, that's proficient or advanced. So we look at both. We look at all of them. So that we've got basic, which is lower scoring. You've got basic and minimal, which are the two that we try to. It goes minimal, basic, and then proficient and advanced. And so we really look at that each year and say, okay, are our advanced numbers growing? Because a lot of people will say our forgotten children or students are our advanced kids. We want to make sure that we're giving our students who are already proficient chances to grow as well, and take a look at those students who aren't testing as well. But they set the limit for all of those different levels, and they just have how they do that. I'm not sure, Dan, but I know that they'll say a score of 430 is basic, a score of 605 is going to be proficient, and 670 is going to be advanced. That they set that.
Is it possible that you can find out?
How they do that,
the
how they
answer to
set
Dan's
that,
question?
It just seems.
I'm sure I could find out. Yeah.
That 65% of the kids being not proficient is acceptable. It doesn't seem.
We've had that conversation as well.
And the numbers that you're seeing here don't show what one of the things that I did kind of notice as I was going through this is like Mr. Rose was saying, we are growing our proficient and advanced sections. I mean, when you look at them from this year to last year, those sections did actually get a little bit larger. So you're looking at a whole number of that. So that grew over last year as well. But more specifically, those two sections that make up that proficient are larger than they were, which means our below basic and our basic are shrinking, which is a good thing.
But my question isn't even about this school district.
Just
It's-
how they
it's
set that number.
How they set that number that
Yeah.
seems arbitrarily too hard of a standard, or something's failing across the whole state.
I will look into that and let you know.
So then, social studies, again, that's a 10th grade only. And there is no science for this, it's just social studies. And this case, again, this is one class, it was 43.1% proficient and 1.6 lower than the state average. And in this particular class they would have been, I think, 8th graders with me when we had the Safer at Home shutdown. And what I can tell you is I know that, we've got a lot of other outside factors that we're dealing with that class as well. So this wasn't really a huge surprise to me.
And I believe that pre-ACT now will have science. It doesn't have social studies, but that has science, which is why this isn't, we don't have science here.
And then these are our composite trends. This would be the ACT specific. So we've been consistent with the composite scores in the past 4 years with our averages given right there as a 20.9 in 2019, 20.7 in 2020, and 19.7 dipped a little bit in 21, 20.2 in 22. In the CISA 3, we were in the top 10 for the 2 years, the 2019 and 2020, and in the top 5 in the last 2 years. And that was what I shared a little bit earlier.
All right, so these are district trends. What they were sharing with you is, so Troy's was 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So that was last year's 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. And then Chris had 6, 7, and 8, and then also 9, 10, and 11. If we look at the district as a whole and see where we're doing, percentage proficiency for English and language arts, these are all the grades that were tested, is about 45%. The statewide average is 37%. For math, when we look at all forward exams, 3rd through 8th grade, percentage proficiency at our school district was 51. Statewide average for proficiency is 39.2. So just that's an example of how we do compared to the state. Looking at high school, when we look at ACT Aspire, which again, you won't see this anymore because this is going away. For math, we have advanced 24%, proficiency 34%. The statewide average for advanced is 11, we were at 24, and for proficient is 21, and we were at 34. So when we look at everybody that's tested in that subject, that's where we are. And again, the statewide report cards were embargoed when we did this presentation, but you'll have those next week. Or I see you're saying next week, it's next month. Any questions on any of that assessment data besides those 2 good ones that we'll certainly look at? Either for me or Chris or Troy.
If it's possible, then I guess just to recap, if you can send out, if there's a CISA rank or, where we fall on the ELA reading, as well as finding out the answer to Dan's question, please.
Yeah. That's good. All right. Do we have anything for the next portion?
If there's no other questions about the admin reports discussion, we're just going into the referendum next steps.
Yep. So we've got Lisa here, as well as Matt and Ryan from Bray. And so we're going to talk about a couple of different things that are coming up. No action is needed on these items. These are just things that they wanted to share with everybody. So Lisa's going to talk a little bit about finance, kind of the next steps. And then Matt will talk a little bit about the timeline. If you guys are like me, that's probably been the most common question that I've received anyway. Probably many of you is, hey, when is stuff going to get done? So they'll talk a little bit about that. But Lisa, can you hear us? Are we all set and ready to go?
I'm all set and ready to go. I just presented to the Monroe School District, so I'm sitting in their boardroom and my lights might go out, so I have to keep waving my arm to make sure I can go back on. I can't share my screen, so I don't know if you want to try to get me the ability to share my screen. Hopefully you guys have a copy of the PowerPoint.
You can share your screen now.
All right, so I'm going to try to. How's that?
Looks good.
Okay. Hi everyone, congratulations on the successful referendum. We had 32 of 39 school facility projects pass across the state last Tuesday, so it was a great day. And you guys were one of them. You had both questions passed, and it's just with a great passage rate. And I know, it was pretty much what the survey said, and you followed your survey. So kudos to all of you. And now the fun starts. I'm going to take the next 10 minutes and just review a little bit about interest rates and where they're at. I'm going to talk about the financing plan, and then I'm going to talk about what we need from you and when as a board. So I'm going to try to keep this high level. I dove into the details with the administrative team earlier this week. And so they're on board with what the plan is, but I wanted to just make sure that you guys knew what's happening and when and why. So interest rates. So just a quick update on where rates are. Obviously, they were much better about a year or two ago. Big picture though, we're still relatively low. We're under the dashed line. So you can see in the last 30 years, half of the time it's been above and half time it's been below. So we're about right at average for the last 30 years. This is a weekly index that comes out. It's not, I think this is based on a AAA. So you guys won't have that bond rating, but if you were asked, what are interest rates today for a 20-year bond for Cuba City, you're probably looking in the high 4% range, somewhere around there. Although we had a really good day in the market today, so maybe it's instead of a 490, maybe a 480 today. So it's super volatile, changes a lot. And we also, I'm flipping to the next slide because I really want to talk about goals. So what are our goals when we're putting the financing plan together? Obviously, our goal is that 1061. We want to make sure your total mill rate has no increase. And we can confidently say that that's what happened this fall. So we talked to the community about it, and we did what we said we were going to do. We levied the $10.61. So, and I'm going to try to keep that at that same rate in future years as well. So that is definitely my number one goal. Second is to minimize interest cost to taxpayers. So we want to lock in the lowest interest rate possible. We want to minimize investment or interest rate risk and also inflation risk. So there's some different strategies that we can do to minimize risk to the district. And one of the big pieces is to not wait to borrow. So try to lock in as soon as we can. So we're taking that risk away. And also we want to maximize the earnings. So when you borrow funds, when you borrow $26.8 million, you're not going to spend it all right away. So we're going to be able to invest that to the tune of about $2,600 a day. So the sooner we can get those funds borrowed and invested, the sooner you can start earning about $2,600 a day. And I think overall, the earnings estimate was somewhere in that $1 million range, but obviously that will change. And just remember that those earnings can be used for projects. So in the end, you're going to have more than $26,850,000 for projects. You're going to have that plus whatever earnings that you have in the what we would call bond proceeds account. So you're borrowing funds and you're putting it into an account to earn interest. So we want to maximize those. Okay, so I'm going to the right-hand side a little bit about your long-term credit rating. Right now, the district has an A+ credit rating. I don't see that changing, especially in light of bringing on a significant amount of debt. So that's one of the factors that Standard & Poor's will look at when they assign a rating. And so the idea of trying to get up to that next level, that AA-, might be challenging just because of that factor alone. So we certainly will try, because an increase in bond rating, if you increased your bond rating one notch, if we were to get to the AA-, you're talking about $350,000 in interest cost savings. So it's significant enough to give it a good try. So we've talked internally about that. Some of the factors, other than the amount of debt that goes into bond rating, is your fund balance, which has been strong at that mid 20% range. all of your policies that you have in place, your economic factors, your enrollment. So all of those factors play into it. So we'll do our best and we'll report back once that rating is in place, which will happen likely end of January, February timeframe. So the approach that we're taking to issue the debt is really two steps. So the first step would be a bond anticipation note. It's a bridge loan. It's if you're building a house, a lot of times you'll get a construction loan, and it's the quickest way to get funds invested. So we are going to issue this note. It's a 6-month note, and we are going to be able to close by mid-December. Looks like December 14th is when you'll have all $26.8 million in starting to earn interest at that $2,600 per day. So that is one of the main reasons why we want to do that short-term bridge loan. And alongside of that loan, the board at the next board meeting, I'm trying to remember what day that is. The 20.
Right now, December 21st.
Yeah, the 21st. So at the 20, let me just double check. No, it's going to happen on the 14th. I apologize. December 14th board meeting is when the board will see 2 resolutions on the agenda. One will be to lock in this bridge loan, and the second one will be parameters. It'll be a resolution, all of the parameters for the bonds. The bonds will be issued in January or February, which is historically the best time to be in the market issuing a long-term 20-year loan. And then the proceeds from that debt will pay off this bridge loan. And this will give us time to get our bond rating in place, get all the documentation ready to go. And it also gives us the ability, I think we've done this in the past with you guys with the parameters resolution, but it really gives us the ability to lock in at any point in time, at any day. So once we have the parameters resolution adopted on December 14th, and we have the bond rating in place, we can start watching the market and pick the best date. We can also involve your local banks to see if they're interested in investing in the district, either with the note or the bonds. So we'll do that as well. There's a slight chance that we, in order to minimize interest rate risk, and it minimize the amount of interest districts paying, there's a slight chance next year that you'll see 2 borrowings. I've done it a couple times. I did it in the Dells last year. It really depends. It's very market driven. I won't get into too much detail other than to say, if we split the borrowing with 10 million as one issue and 16 as the other issue and sell 15 days apart, we can get much lower interest rates to the tune of about 25 to 35 basis points. So they're considered bank qualified debt, and it's a lot more work. So we have to make sure that it makes sense from a cost and interest cost standpoint. And that's something that I'll talk to you guys later about. But I want you to know that that's another approach that we take, a strategy that we implement if interest rates, if it really makes sense and it saves you guys a lot of interest cost. As a board, I want to know that the structure of the long-term loan won't go past 20 years. That's state statutes. We're trying to keep your payments equal from 2026 till the end. We are going to use a portion of, we might, so you over levied in 22-23 for debt. So we're going to use that to our advantage, either to downsize the bonds so that you're not borrowing as much at the high 4%. Normally we'd use it to pay off your old debt, but your old debt rates are much lower. So we're going to strategize in terms of how we're going to use the excess levy, and we'll have that decision made in January and February. A lot of numbers on this page. I apologize, but I want you to focus on 2 things. One is a very right-hand column, which shows your total mill rate. Again, the goal is to keep it at $10.61. We have structured the debt so that it stays at $10.61. There's a lot of unknown factors out there, you know, as they budget what your valuation is going to do. But as it stands right now, we're giving you, especially in 23, 24, we have no principal payback because we want to give you that flexibility to be able to keep it at that $10.61. The second the second piece would be the yellow column. That's just showing you that we're trying to structure your annual payments, your actual levy for debt equally. We're kind of stepping into that $2.5 million, but your debt payment on an annual basis for 20 years, except for those first couple, will be about $2.5 million. The third thing as a board that I would focus on is the interest rate on the bonds. Right now, we're at a 5.11. That's got a cushion. So your borrowing rate is going to be we're hoping to stay under 5%. With right now, I'm just slightly over 5%, but this is not final. Again, this will be finalized in January or probably February. So you'll see the final financing plan at that point. Just a brief overview of the timeline. Most of this is on us and your administration, but I highlighted the board column because tonight you're just reviewing the financing plan as we just did. And then we're going to need you on December 14th, where there will be 2 resolutions on the agenda for you to approve. One will be the resolution to approve the bridge loan, the bond anticipation note. And the second resolution will be what I mentioned before, the parameters resolution that will lay all the parameters of the bonds, the call date, the payment dates, the principal payments, all of the legal parameters that are involved with that. And that gives Baird the ability to, again, lock in on a good day in the market in February. So I'll pause there, see if there's any questions.
I'm not following the bridge loan. I guess you're saying we're making interest, but aren't we also accruing interest that we owe? And
Yep.
We're making more interest than what we're gonna end up paying, or why borrow money earlier if we aren't?
What we're trying to do there is we are trying to get the money invested as soon as possible. And you are right, there is an interest rate associated with that. And I wouldn't do it if we couldn't meet the goal of the $10.61. So we still can hit 10.61 and get this money invested as soon as possible. The goal is to mitigate, to try to maximize your earnings for projects, because we all know inflation is hitting us right now. So with every district that we're working with, we're trying to maximize those earnings while we can. But I wouldn't do it, like I said, I wouldn't do it if we couldn't hit the 10.61.
But we're not in effect costing ourselves more money.
No, I mean, if you issued bonds, you would pay, you would be paying interest as well. It is a little bit more because you're issuing that note just a couple months early. But again, we are trying to maximize the earnings to mitigate the inflation.
Are you
risk.
saying that the earnings offset the cost?
For the most part, but the earnings are going into your project fund, and the cost is interest due to tax or due from taxpayers.
And that interest for projects, really, we're kind of thinking that's going to help offset the costs of inflation. The idea that we give another $1 million, we could go to our next line item and start planning that. I think we really have to consider that we don't want to not be able to do everything on there on our original plan. So that's kind of what we're thinking, is we can earn $1 million in interest with this approach. That will help offset some of the interest or some of the increased costs.
When would the first payment be due, Aaron?
She had the payments, Matt from Bray is going to talk about the payment schedule
Okay.
next.
I meant, if long as we've got the income coming in to do
Yep.
that.
Yep, Matt will touch on that.
All right.
Any other questions for Lisa?
This is Matt from Brady. The only other thing I would offer is, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, the other consideration is that over the life of this bond, once you issue it, if we ever get back to low interest rates, the district will likely refinance and basically recoup or offset any increase in interest you're paying in the near term. So that's another consideration, is that I don't think you're locking in for 20 years at this rate. Is that correct, Lisa?
I mean, if interest rates fall, of course, we're gonna refinance. We've done it in the past with the district and we would do it again. If they stay the same, no, then we would let it sit out there. But 9 times out of 10, you're gonna refinance in the end because you get further along in the loan and it would make sense, yep.
So I think my point with that is that even if in the near term you may pay a little more, you're reaping, use the $1 million, you're investing that $1 million potentially back into your facilities now versus having to borrow or generate operating budget dollars to do $1 million project 5, 6, 7 years from now, when you're going to get 70 or 80% of that at best in terms of what you would get in today's dollars. And on top of it, when you refinance, if it becomes feasible to refinance in the future, you're gonna, I would hope, ideally, offset any increase in interest you're paying today. So it does seem like from an outsider's perspective, a pretty smart way to tackle this.
Thanks, Matt. Are there any other questions?
Hearing none, we can move on to Matt and Lisa. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Lisa.
All right, good evening. And Ryan, I believe you're on as well. Is that correct? Yep, I'm here. Excellent. Well, thank you. Obviously, congratulations. First thing, exciting times in Cuba City, and we're obviously looking forward to getting going. So just a pretty brief overview this evening. Obviously, one of the things Aaron just touched on is when do we need the dollars? And the dollars directly relate to what is the schedule for the project. And so this is usually the time we have conversations with school boards about, now we've passed, do we want to jog, do we want to sprint, or is this a bit more of a marathon? And usually it's some combination of those three. So what we're currently thinking is the elementary school roof, we all know is an essential need and a critical project. So what we're working on now is accelerating the design and bidding of the elementary school roof. That said, just to be upfront, there are still some procurement and long lead challenges potentially with roofing. So what our current schedule is, and we have not flushed this out in every last detail yet. We'll be doing that in the near term here. But we would be producing a bid set to go out to the market within the next, let's just say, 2.5 months, and ask the roofing contractors to give us 2 bids. One bid would be if they would do the re-roofing in the summer of 2023. And the second bid would be if they were to do the re-roofing in the summer of 2024. And the reason we want both of those numbers is because if it is still difficult to get insulation or roofing material or labor, and there is better value to the district gain by waiting a year, we'll be able to make that decision as a group, including you obviously as a board, based on real dollars versus our theoretical estimates based on what those things would cost. So that's one project that, if all the stars align, we would envision having the re-roof of the elementary school done in the summer of 2023. Right now, we're suggesting that we may want to hold off on the parking lot replacement project in the summer of 2023 because we're going to have all the roofing contractor traffic and equipment and things all around the building at that time, and I don't think we would want them on new asphalt. And 2, we think there could be some value gained by bidding that piece of the elementary school project as part of the larger high school project. Asphalt companies, a mobilization is a pretty big part of what they charge for. And so if we can get them to mobilize once in the summer of 2023 or 2024 to do that work, it could be to your benefit. The other visible piece that we think makes sense to consider, and it's just logical, would be to consider some of the site development for the high school project in the summer of 2023, mainly building, at least starting on construction of the expanded parking lot. So think of heading back towards baseball. We've got new parking. There's likely going to be some retaining wall. Our thought is we build the retaining wall, get the new parking lot in, not completed. We're thinking just the base course of asphalt, not all of the asphalt. And that would become, as we're building the gym and everything else in that general direction, we can offset hopefully all, but if not all, some of the parking lost by the construction of the gym. And that work we're hoping we can have done in the summer of 2023 as well. Other parts of it, we're currently thinking, and obviously we want the board on how to tackle this. We're currently thinking that we bid the rest of the project. So basically all of the construction of the building, renovations, additions, etc. We bid all of that as one final package. And the main reason for that is there are really two things. There is an economy of scale gained by bidding that all together. So let's just say hypothetically we broke the high school classroom renovations apart from the additions. We'd suddenly have two different flooring contractors, door suppliers, slings, et cetera, lighting. And I think we believe there's an economy of scale bidding all of that at one time and getting one vendor, one supplier, one contractor to do all of that work. The other part is that when we get to that final bid package, let's just say, and this is trying to be conservative with how we approach this, let's say we have a budget challenge. And we're optimistic that we're not, but let's say we do. If we've already done the elementary school roof, the high school parking lot, the high school classroom renovations, we have less scope of the overall project to look at. And so we're committing throughout the next 6 or 8 months a bunch of dollars of investment. And we don't have the full picture financially yet. So the board, I think, in the district in general, we wouldn't have the ability to make as solid of financial decisions if we get in a fiscal challenge. And again, I'm not suggesting we're going to, but that is one of the reasons we think, another reason we think there's a benefit to bidding all of that final work together. So that's we're working on a phasing plan right now that we'll share with the board next time we get together in person and kind of go through here the big picture moves of summer 2023, when this new construction starts, et cetera, et cetera. The other piece to consider, and Aaron, jump in if I get these dates wrong, is that we have, I believe, reapplied for the federal storm shelter grant. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes.
And we wouldn't hear about that until the earliest in June, probably closer to July, if it goes like it did this last year, of 2023. And so the concern is that there's a lot of implications of getting that grant on how the gym is designed, roof structure is different, mechanical systems are different. There's a bunch of variables. And if we've already, I'll say, kind of sprinted ahead and done all of that work and did all of that work, we're not going to be in a position to delay the project slightly to take advantage of the grant without significant, I'll say, redesign and rebidding, and I'll say a lot of financial impact. So there's a lot of factors that we've kind of initially discussed regarding the schedule, but I hope, and we're optimistic, that the first things you'll see in terms of visible construction is the elementary school roof and the new parking to the south-ish, if I have the direction correct, I believe it's south of the high school. So that's a lot. Ryan, anything I missed there, or board, any questions you might have on that piece? And then we'll kind of jump into a couple other little things.
Yeah, I've got a couple here. What about getting a contractor on board? We're gonna do that until we get down the road a whole bunch.
Did you hear that, Matt?
It broke up a little bit. Can you repeat that, Aaron?
Yeah, he just wanted, we had a board member ask about our construction manager, and I believe Ryan And Matt told me that you sent those bids out last Friday, correct?
So the construction manager request for qualifications went out on Friday or Saturday. I think it was Friday of last week. They went to 5 or 6 construction managers who had expressed interest in the project at the time. Those are due back, the qualifications are due back in, I'll say early mid-December. And we would then be requesting formal financial proposals from the shortlisted group of construction managers. And the current thought is we would interview them in early January and make a selection of that partner at that time.
And that would be an
Their involvement is not essential to this first 6-8 weeks of the preparation of design and engineering. The other thing I should have added on the roof is right now, the consideration is that we would not include the elementary school roof in the scope of the construction manager's proposals. We think it's a relatively straightforward project that we would work with the district and bid directly to roofing contractors. And by doing that, you would save the markups and fees and other things that a construction manager would charge you on that re-roofing project. And it allows the process just to be accelerated for that roofing project.
So then they would oversee that?
Yes.
It would be their.
Yep.
Ball to carry.
Yep.
All right.
But I think by the end of January, at the absolute latest, we're gonna have that construction manager on board and they're still gonna be part of, 6-7 months of design. And so I don't think there's any value in going through this process over the next 8 weeks. And I think there's a lot of value added in terms of the community's ability to see a transparent process for the best selection. And as I noted, it doesn't harm the project in terms of the quality in any way.
Matt, can you speak to what do you mean by qualifications of the general contractor?
So what we asked right now is for construction managers. So what we've asked is construction managers who want to partner with the district to lead these efforts to submit, I'll say just somewhat basic information, qualifications of your firm. What is your firm history, firm background? What's your bonding capacity? Which project team members would you propose? Who would your project manager be? Who would your on-site superintendent be? Give us examples of experience you have doing K-12 construction projects of this type. From that information, we will collectively, board included or not, depending on how the district wants to structure that, shortlist, as we would call it. Let's say we get 5 proposals or 5 qualification statements. We'll narrow that list to 3, maybe even 2, depending on how the board feels. And then we will send them a formal request for proposal. That proposal then that they submit will include the financial terms. It'll include their fees, their general conditions, all of those different parts and pieces, the cost for the bond, the cost for insurance. And that fee piece in partnership with, if you want to conduct a formal interview with them, like you did with us when we first were hired, those 2 things can be considered before you make your final selection of who your construction manager would be. Just for clarity's sake, the construction manager, and we've made it clear in the request for qualifications, the construction manager, whoever is hired, they're not guaranteed to self-perform, is the term used in the industry, or actually I'll say do any of the work. So even if, say, Acme Construction is hired and Acme Construction employs masons, or steel erectors or carpenters, they will not be guaranteed to get those scopes of work. Those scopes of work still need to be bid. So the district will require that if you want to do concrete work, for example, your concrete bid as the construction manager will need to be submitted to the district and or BRAE, however you want to structure it. And all of the competitive bidders from that category or scope of work will be submitted in the same way. So we're trying to balance getting a construction manager to be your partner and ours through the process of design and bidding. Balance that with making sure all of the categories of work are bid and that all local labor and trades have the ability to bid on the project, even if they don't want to be the construction manager.
I have a question. Is construction manager, is that the same as a general contractor? I've heard of like GCs, so are those terms interchangeable, or is construction manager like a new term in the field that we're now using?
They're used a little bit interchangeably. I'll generalize. Construction manager, the term is used when you hire a client, somebody hires a construction professional to manage your construction process. And it starts earlier, so it starts before the design is completed and the engineering is done. So that construction manager is meeting with us, is attending all of the meetings throughout. You still bid, as I noted earlier, all of the trade work out, so you're still getting competitive bids there. But you as a district in this case would be selecting the construction manager based on qualifications and fee, not based on total price for the project, because the design engineering isn't complete. The inverse, and these are generalizations, in the words, terms are sometimes used interchangeably. In general, a general contractor would be selected through a competitive bid process where we would design and engineer the entire project. There wouldn't be a construction manager or a contractor at the table with us. We design and engineer the whole thing, send it out to bid to the bid market, and general contractors would submit bids to proceed with the project, and the lowest qualified bidder would be selected as your general contractor. So they are used interchangeably. It's a great question. But the general difference is how the entity is selected to be your partner. Contractual structure actually looks almost identical in that you're one or the other, the construction manager or the general contractor, will be holding all of the subcontracts. So everything for plumbing, electrical, painting, roofing, etc., will be held by the construction manager or general contractor.
Thanks, Matt.
Is that cost saving? Is that gonna cost us more to have a construction manager and then you go to the firm that's gonna build it?
I don't know that you ever really know, and I will tell you in 25 years, we've never had a client say, I'm gonna use a construction manager to do this, and I'm gonna bid the same project with the same scope at the same time and see who is more affordable. They're just different in terms of how they look and feel. The district did use construction manager on the middle school project. And again, Aaron, please jump in if I'm wrong there, but I believe we used a construction manager to do that project. I think the important thing to note is the bidding aspect, that all aspects of the project will be bid in either scenario. The big difference if you pick construction manager is you are selecting your partner, as I said before, based on their qualifications and their fee proposal. You are not selecting them because they submitted the lowest bid. And so I think every district has a different opinion on what is quote unquote value, and some value the partnership of having a construction manager, I'll say challenging us along the way, doing budgets along the way, not that we're not gonna do budgets, but challenging us along the way and having an additional partner at the table to help make decisions. Some don't, and they want to solely make the decision on who builds their building based on who submits the lowest bid on bid day.
Aaron, who was the construction manager? Wasn't that Kramer's that were on the?
Kramer was the construction manager versus 2017. Yep.
Okay.
And they were one of the 6 companies. They were one of the 6 companies that received a bid.
Can we have a list of the 6 that were?
Yeah, I've got them, and I actually have Matt's proposal. Like it's a 6-page. Do you guys want me to just send you the actual so you can read through it? I can send that to you and say, here are the 6 companies they went to. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, Aaron, that'd be great, because also included in that is the very preliminary phasing plan in terms of construction schedule. So I think that would be helpful for the board to see that as well.
Sure.
And just when you're looking at, board members just know that it's not right. I can tell you that right now. There's a lot of work to do on that, but it's a starting point for conversation.
I guess, Matt, we used Kramer last time and I know I went to the bid opening. I think Megan did as well. They bid everything. So I guess, just trying to this seems like a different approach. At this point, having you bid everything out, or am I incorrect in what I thought I heard?
Yeah, we are not bidding this, the design is not done, the engineering is not done. That's what the next, 6, 7, 8, 9 months will be, is detailing out all that design and engineering.
Matt, whatever
What
group
we've asked
we go with
for
would
from the
have a,
construction managers is qualifications first. And then we will ask them for a proposal, and their proposal, which will be the financial terms, will not be for the entire project. We're not gonna ask them for how much is the concrete cost or the electrical cost. We're gonna ask them for what is your fee for overhead and profit? What is your bond cost? What is your insurance cost? How much does your on-site superintendent cost? How much does your project manager cost? So all of those things, if you were to go the other route and in the process of quote unquote competitively bidding the project, you'd be paying for all those things. You just wouldn't know what you were paying because they're all lumped into the bid that the contractor submits. You are seeing those prices up front, and those have been factored into the referendum budgets that were developed leading up to referendum day.
so Matt, no matter what company we go with, the 6 that we sent out, we would experience the same type of bid day that we did in 2017, where we would go and that day all the bids were due and we would have an estimate. That's standard practice for these types of procedures, right?
As long as districts require that a contractor who wants to self-perform some of the work, as I noted earlier in this conversation, as long as districts require them to bid those trades, they're not allowed to just do them, which is what we have required in the request for qualifications. And assuming the board agrees, we will require moving forward. That might be the only nuance, and I can't speak to the specifics of the last round of bidding you did with Kramer in 2017, but the only nuance difference might be that, I'll make this up, Aaron and I might get Kramer's concrete bid, and we'll get Acme Construction and James Construction's concrete bids emailed to us versus them being sent directly to Kramer. I don't know if that's how it was done in 2017. That might be the subtle difference between the last time and what we do now. But the big picture premise is exactly the same.
Okay, I have another question. So with the general contractor, we would see the bid for their entire project. But if we go with a construction manager, are we, let's say company A, are they not going to show us a bid on like what they think this project's gonna cost? So are we gonna run into problems of overspending?
I don't think in the end, the construction manager or the general contractor, so either term interchangeably, they don't really determine what the project costs. The market determines what the project costs because everything is bid. So let's just say we design the whole thing and put it out to bid in July or August or September of next year, whatever we end up deciding on. Whatever the general desire, demand, market conditions are, whenever we send this out to bid, that is what determines the cost of the project, right? You or I, none of us can control the general economic state at the time we bid the project. So the process looks a little different because you are making a decision to hire your construction manager potentially now without knowing the total cost, not budget. We know what the budget is. That's the referendum amount. You don't know the total cost. You will know the cost if we hire the construction manager of their fee, of their general conditions, of their project manager, of their on-site superintendent. You won't know the cost of concrete, carpentry, masonry, electrical, roofing, etc. The other route is you design the whole thing, you send it out to bid, and you have that nervous moment that when you open the envelopes and see what the cost is after you've gone through the design process. So.
Yeah, I got another question. I don't know if you
I hope that helps. There's a ton of subtlety to this, so I appreciate and understand all the questions you're asking.
Yep, we got one more question, Matt.
Yeah, no problem.
Construction manager without a contractor. And then this contractor's gonna bid on this one's gonna bid on that. How's that all gonna play out in the end? I mean, how are they all gonna interlock and work together? When you're not gonna.
They're all, that's a great question. So the construction manager, assuming we continue down that path, which is where we're currently heading, the construction manager will hold all of the contracts. So whoever is the low bid concrete company, masonry company, steel erection company, electrical contractor, painter, roofer, all of those contracts are going to be subcontracts to the construction manager. So the Cuba City School District will only have one contract with the construction manager, and all of those subcontracts fall underneath the construction manager, and the CM is responsible for managing all of those sub-trades.
The way it is right now in the economy, you put it out for bid, they only bid it for so many calendar days, correct? It's usually 30, 60, or 90, because the price fluctuation goes so much on material.
Yes, there's gonna be, and we can control that, and regardless of the delivery model, there will be timing in terms of how long the bids must remain valid for. You point out something very astutely, that we used to be able to get bids to be held for 60 days, 90 days. It's a lot harder to do, right? We have to do 30 days. I think we're past the worst. So there was a point in time where you would get steel bids and you had to award them the next day or the price went up. I think we're past quite a bit of that. But your point is valid that the contract documents, when we send them out to the bidding world, regardless of the construction manager or general contractor model, will have to clearly state, and always do clearly state, how long their bids must be held for.
Yeah, all right, because I mean, it's hard to do in today's world, you know, to bid this get it, and then bid it for when it's gonna start basically a year later after it's designed, correct? For half a year. I mean, how do you get your figures down to what it's gonna be when they dig the first hole?
Yeah, so so the way this typically works, and so there will be a schedule included in the bid documents, regardless of the construction manager, general contractor model again, there will be a schedule. And it will say that, you know, summer of 2024, this is the scope of work that's being done. And they don't have to bid like that. And I will say it is very, very normal. You think of any project in high inflationary times or not, when you bid a project, you don't need the light fixtures or the HVAC units or the flooring. You typically don't need those on a large project for 6, 8, 9, 12, sometimes 18 months. So the manufacturers of those different parts and pieces are working that far in advance. And what happens is when you award to the flooring contractor who's going to do the install, for example, they are able to lock in procurement of the flooring material at that time. So they're getting a commitment from the manufacturer of the flooring to deliver the product 6, 8, 10 months, 12 months out into the future for a given price, which is what their bid was based on. The construction industry also has generally has labor contracts in place on the union side. On the non-union side, that's their decision, right? They're not controlled by the unions, but the union rates are actually negotiated out in advance. Typically, it depends on the union, but they often kind of increase in February or something like that. So those are even negotiated a year in advance or more. So bidding contractors do know generally what their labor rate's going to be and what their material pricing are going to be and what their productivity rates are going to be. So you are signing a contract that the subcontractors will provide the scope of work at a cost. They cannot come back and ask you for more because gas prices went up or because the flooring prices went up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Matt or Ryan?
Oh, just that the building wall and the fill for the park, extended parking, and the roof at the round school will be in your ballpark, correct?
Those are the things we think we should move quickly on in terms of the roofing is the first thing at the elementary school that we think you're gonna see formal bids from the construction world on. And as I said earlier, we hope it's feasible in summer of 2023. But we also wanna make sure that we're not spending extra money just for the sake of getting it done. So when we solicit those bids from the roofing contractors, we're gonna ask them for two prices, one for summer 2023 and one for summer 2024. And the district can make the decision on what's in your best interest. But as you noted, then the other piece is the parking to the south that we would recommend getting started on, so that you have parking while construction is going on throughout the 2023-2024 school year.
I think what Chuck was asking is you guys are gonna take the role of construction manager for those two projects, correct?
We think the construction manager should be involved in the high school parking lot expansion. We just don't think that they add as much value to the elementary school roofing project. So right now, we're proposing that the elementary school roof be the only project that is not included in the construction manager scope of work. That's how the current RFQ reads that was sent out last week.
My concern with the elementary school delaying that a year, how much damage you're gonna have inside the building with the roof not working properly.
Yeah, we agree. That's why we're hurrying it up to try to get it done in the summer of 2023. Our concern is that roofing and roof insulation has been one of the hardest items to procure over the last basically 18 months. And there's a chance that if we said the only time you can do this roof is the summer of 2023, we might not get any bids because people might say, I can't get the material. So the thought is that give them the choice. And if the general roofing world says, yes, we can do it, things have normalized a little, we can make it happen. And the district isn't paying a premium for that, great, right? We get that number and we see it. But our fear is that if we don't give them the option for the next summer, there's a good chance we might not get any bids because people just say, I can't get the materials. How can I even bid on it?
Right, I understand that.
There was, I know we had discussed, or at least Kramer's had discussed the roof at the high school, whether any or part needed to be replaced. Where did that end up?
Yes, there are certain portions of the roof that have to be replaced.
Yeah.
When we talked about this summer versus next summer, they said, well, we don't want to put a new roof on and then say, oh, well, it would be best if in the tech ed, if we had this vent going out here and then have to put another hole in that roof. So they said, we want to get all that done before the roof. So that's why they didn't want to do it this summer.
I was just thinking in terms of if you were gonna bid in both roofs to the same company at the same time, but I understand.
Yeah, we're gonna bid the high school roof replacement projects along with the new high school addition. So there is a lot of roofing to be bid there. And we think that's your best economy of scale. And as Aaron just noted, it's the way to protect against poking new holes in a brand new roof right after you put it on.
All right, thank you.
If I could just add a quick point of clarification too, for the elementary school project, Bray we don't act as a CM. We will administer the bidding for the project out to the roofing contractor community, but the district would hold the contract with the roofing contractor directly. So it's very similar to how Matt described the general contractor competitive bidding scenario previously, where we'll put the construction documents out to bid once they're complete to the roofing companies in the area. They'll submit bids. We'll review those with the district, decide on who the best qualified bid is. And then the district would hold a contract with the roofing contractor, just like you would a general contractor or a construction manager. But we don't manage the construction. We have construction administration services where we're checking to make sure compliance with the construction documents, we're reviewing submittals for compliance, performing site visits to check on progress. But we aren't acting as a construction manager. So I just wanted to make a clarification there.
I guess I understand. I guess my question is then, is Aaron in charge of making sure we get a quality job done, or how does that work?
My assumption would be yes, but then when I have questions, Matt and Ryan would guide us through that in working.
So we have contractual responsibility to be on site every other week, reviewing that installation as it goes. Just think that the cost of having, and I'll make up a hypothetical, the cost of having a full-time construction manager superintendent out on the job site, I'll say just quotes, in quotes, just reviewing the day-to-day progress of that roof is gonna add a great deal of cost that we don't think adds a great deal of value. I'd argue it's, let's just say you didn't have this referendum passed and you went out to replace the roof out of the operating budget. Most districts wouldn't hire a construction manager to oversee a roofing contractor to replace the roof. So there will be oversight. It's not going to be a construction manager, full-time on-site, 10 hours a day, every day, oversight of the project though.
All right, thank you.
But you write the specs, correct?
Oh, yeah, we will have specifications, warranty requirements, details. Yeah, this is not just gonna be, Acme Roofing and John's Roofing submitting whatever bids they want. One is a Cadillac roof and one is a Chevy roof. There is gonna be requirements in our plans and specs that they will be held to legally.
Okay. All right, thank you. Other questions? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, board. Congratulations
Thanks,
again.
Ryan.
Yep, thanks and congrats. Looking forward to next steps.
See you soon.
Take care.
Alrighty, are there any other referendum next steps, Aaron or board, that you want to discuss? All right, public recognition.
Nobody signed it.
Nobody signed in. I would just publicly like to thank the board and administration for all of your support and help with getting this referendum done. It was a great night, and I'm excited for the future of Cube City Schools and the kids. So I know my grandkids were excited. So new business, approve the date and time of the regular December meeting.
Yep, we have it on the 21st. I have not had any requests to remove it or to move it from the third week to the second week. So if nobody wants to move that, we don't even have to take action. We can
Did I
just-
hear Lisa say that we had to have it on the 14th for a couple of reasons?
I told her it was going to be the 14th or the 21st.
Okay. Will
So
that matter with her timing if we don't do it?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that going to matter? Because according to what she told us the other day, we needed action from the, I think it has something to do with closing and getting that money into our account by the 28th of December, Aaron, but maybe you want to ask.
right,
her.
I thought the 21st would have been fine for that.
Fine,
Also, I didn't
but
think
just
either one.
maybe
But you know
ask
what? Since we're all here, it just
She
makes more sense.
specifically mentioned the 14th on a
She did.
She
I
did
thought
because
that
I
was
told her
her
it was the
yeah.
14th or the 21st.
I almost got the impression the meeting had been moved to the
Yep.
14th.
Be easier.
Well, especially if you have to have a special meeting.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it would be kill two.
I didn't
birds
see
with one
Brad
stone.
jumping up and down over there with an opinion one way or the other.
Brad was saying it's third week.
Third Wednesday.
Hey, Lisa, a quick question for
There you
you. On your document, it said December 14th meeting. Our meeting is
23rd.
set for the 21st. Do we need to have it the 14th in order to get all those things done in time? Or is the 21st fine?
21st. You got Christmas in there, you got a little street.
Oh, the 21st would not work.
14th it is.
No, we did not. Okay. That's what Heather, you may have. Okay, Heather thought that too. So we just wanted to call for verification. All right, thanks, Lisa.
Kind of wish the camera was on Heather.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Thanks. Bye-bye. So we could have a special board meeting on the 14th, just with one action item. Or just do it all on the 14th.
Makes sense.
Do it all.
in one.
Yeah.
All in one? Okay.
So do we have a motion for the December board meeting date?
I'll move to approve the December regular board meeting for Wednesday, December 14th at 6:30.
I'll second.
Collins.
Yes.
Wait,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item B is approved technology sale items.
Yep, we have some items and this is the first item. We've got some projectors that still work. And our tech team would like to sell some of those to places who have inquired about them. And whenever we need to sell district funds, we have to bring that to the board. So they have more items that they're thinking about selling. So this might be something on a future agenda as well.
Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll move to approve the list of technology sale items as presented.
Is
I'll
there a
second.
Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Personnel, approve the hiring of Alex McClennan as a middle school Lego League coach.
Yes, so Lego League says that you can only have a team of 10 kids. So if you have more than 10, you have to have another. And so what they're proposing is you need a head coach and assistant coach. So Alex and Amy each one would be a head coach and they'd be each other's assistant. But we need to have, the good news is we have more than 10 kids interested in Lego League. So I'm recommending that we approve this.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the hiring of Alex McClelland as middle school Lego League coach as presented.
Second.
Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Approve the hiring of seventh grade boys basketball coach Brock Adamson.
Yep. Mr. Sander interviewed with Brock and thinks he's a good candidate for a seventh grade basketball coach. And we both recommend that we approve this hire.
Is there a second then, or a motion, I should say?
I'll move to approve the hiring of seventh grade boys basketball coach Brock Adamson as presented.
Second?
I will second. Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Approve the hiring of new middle school special ed paraprofessional Amanda Mitchling.
I think yep. So both these next two hires are one-on-one aides of students who moved into our district that had that in their IEP. So both Deb and I recommend both these hires.
I will move to approve the hiring of new middle school special ed paraprofessional Amanda Mitchling as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item D is approve the hiring of a new elementary special ed paraprofessional Sydney Bridgen.
Bridgen. Yep.
Bridgen.
And both Deb and I recommend that we approve this hire as well.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the hiring of a new CCES special education paraprofessional Sydney Bridigan as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second. Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
E is approve the hiring of middle school wrestling head coach Jerry Curtis.
Yep. Jacob Glennon, our middle school activities director, Mr. Sander, and I all recommend that we approve this hire.
Would someone move?
I'll move to approve the hiring of middle school wrestling head coach Terry Curtis as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
E or F is approve the hiring of middle school wrestling assistant coach Chris Denar. Would someone move?
I'll move to approve the hiring of middle school wrestling assistant coach Chris Denar as presented.
Second.
Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
G is approve middle school wrestling volunteer coach Brian Short.
Yep. We always we always bring to the board any volunteers as well. So we've got a large group of wrestlers this year. So we're very thankful to get a third adult in there.
I'll move to approve middle school wrestling volunteer coach Brian Schuhart as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second. Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Approve middle school seventh grade interim girls basketball head coach Megan Rogeman.
Yep. And we say interim because we have Ellie Glennon, who was in that position and would like to come back to it the next year. So Megan agreed to take it for 1 year.
I will move to approve the hiring of middle school seventh grade interim girls basketball head coach Megan Rogeman as presented. Is there a second?
A second.
Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Public hearing on the request for DPI waiver pursuant to Wisconsin's statute 1180545 and Wisconsin Administrative Code PI 27.03 for early start date.
According to state statute, we have to have a public hearing in case, if we're ever interested in starting school before September 1st. So in talking with Bray Architects, they are suggesting that we allow them at full access to our building starting May 15th of 2024. This year's May would be 2023. So what that means we would have to do is move the calendar back 3 weeks. So we would start earlier in August, and we have a calendar that has gone out to the CCEA, and we're looking at it administratively. But as of right now, the start date, I believe, for students would be August 14th, and the last day with students would be May 8th of 2024. So that's what we have right now. So before we approve the calendar, we have to pass a resolution that allows me to apply with DPI. So we have to have a public hearing in case anybody wants to speak. So at this time, is anyone interested in speaking on behalf of the calendar? As Susan is the only person here. Susan, you got anything to say? No. Okay. So the next piece would be to approve the resolution.
I will move to approve the resolution on request for DPI waiver for early start date for the 2023-24 school year due to major building construction as presented.
And do we need to put that date in there?
No, because we have to just tell them that we want to start before the first, and then we tell them we send them the calendar.
And I assume we'll communicate that ASAP when we, because that's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
the start of next school
Right.
year, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
All righty. We got a motion and a second on that then, Megan?
I needed a second.
I'll second.
I think Chuck
Chuck,
seconded.
Chuck
already.
second.
Yeah,
Okay.
Chuck. Got it. Collins.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And I will need signatures of both Megan and Gary on this document. So before you guys leave, please sign that.
Okay. Committee reports, budget and finance, anything, Chuck or Aaron?
Buildings and grounds, did you say, or budget?
Budget,
And finance, nothing. Nope.
Bill,
You got a meeting coming up or anything, Aaron?
For budget and finance?
No, buildings and ground.
Buildings and grounds, we will likely meet to update our long-range capital plan for Fund 46 because the referendum's going to take care of a lot of those. So we'll revise that, and we need to have that go through buildings and grounds, then we'll bring it to the school board. So that's something that we'll have. Once we get closer to seeing everything that Bray has, we're going to take a look at that and say, okay, which things can we cross off from our current plan, and then what do we want to replace that with? So
Right.
it may not be till December or January, but that's going to be our next buildings and grounds meeting.
Nothing else we need to address right now.
okay. Communications review and strategic planning. We sort of just did that, I guess, here.
That's actually a committee that we might want to consider next May,
Consider
just dropping, because we've just been doing it as special board meetings.
Curriculum, instruction, and assessment. We started, I guess, tonight with regular reports and look forward to the report card next month. Personnel, is there any reason to meet in the foreseeable future?
I'm going to start working with CCEA on that, and then the personnel committee asked me to work with them and then let you guys know when we're close to making some decisions before we have a meeting. So that's where we are right now.
Okay. Policy, it looks like you're gonna meet next month.
Yep, I'm meeting with the Neola rep in maybe the first or second week in December. So we'll either do that right before Christmas or right after.
Technology, transportation, Dan, any things?
The bids are still being, the bid document, which is like 23 pages, is still being reviewed by Eileen. As soon as she sends that out, I'll be sending that to the Tech and Transportation Committee give you guys some time to look it over, and then we'll be sending those out for transportation bids.
And we intend to do that without a meeting, right? Just on our
Yeah.
review.
Foundation, looks like you'll meet in January.
January or February, whenever calendars work.
Yeah.
We're starting to work with George, and it's just George, Dan, and Chuck. So we're trying to find a Wednesday that works.
Okay, all right. CISA 3, I don't really have anything, so. Question? No. You making a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Just waving it.
Waving it.
Is there a second to that?
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
All right, and your signature, Gary, on these two documents.